Thanks very much for joining the latest episode of Trust Builders, Rebecca. Could you please start off by giving a bit of an introduction to yourself and your role at Armis?
Of course. So really good to be here. Thank you for having me. So I am the Vice President of Corporate Communications at Armis. And Armis is a global leader in cybersecurity. We protect organizations from attack and do everything we can in our power to make sure they're not affected by any cyber threat that's out there, whether it's geopolitics or some local vulnerability that they're trying to protect themselves from.
Great. And who are the kind of clients that might be using Armis's tech?
So we have global Fortune 100 companies. We operate in a global basis. So we have a big presence in the US. We do a lot of critical infrastructure support for the US government and for local entities in America, and then right through to Europe and into Asia Pacific as well. So all enterprise clients and public sector.
And I guess working in cybersecurity, I mean, you couldn't think of something more important than the trust, right? So
100%.
how is it that that you go about building that kind of critical trust? Why does a business trust you with their cybersecurity?
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, trust is crucial to everything you do in a partnership environment like ours. It's at the forefront of everything that anyone is discussing at the moment, whether it's geopolitical threats or bad actors from, third-party countries like Iran, China, Russia. We see the threats increase on a daily basis. And so every organization has to trust their technology partners implicitly. They need to be aware that we have their back, that we're supporting them through every eventuality. I mean, just this week, and the last couple of weeks in Europe particularly, you've seen major power outages from cyber attack, and you've also seen some of the biggest retailers, Marks and Spencers, Harrods, they're all offline at the moment from a cyber attack. So having partnership and working with organizations that are really supporting their infrastructure, that they've got their best needs in top of mind is really, really important. And to do that, you really need to engage with at the heart of what they're trying to solve or what they're trying to put together. And securing your business and making sure you do not get attacked by someone is fundamental to how operations run today.
And so would you say there are kind of maybe three things that have really helped Armis as a brand build trust with the customers that you're serving?
So one of the things we talk about, we're very customer centric, and everybody says that, but genuinely the whole way we interact with our customer base is that with that in mind. We really do say what we're going to do. So I know there's a lot of empty words, or the roadmap is X, or we believe in customer success and service, and there's lots of empty conversations that I have. But at the full DNA of our company, every single person, whether you're customer facing or not, is focused on supporting the business that we're in, which is securing critical infrastructure and protecting the environments. So we have always gone into a partnership with our customers that we're very, very transparent about how we're building and innovating on our platform. We have something called a customer advisory board, which meets 3 times a year, 1 in virtual and 2, we actually get everybody together in person. And it's literally like an open door policy. This is the roadmap. This is what we're developing. This is when it will be delivered. This is why we know it's important to you. And they're also part of that journey too, right? So they can see what we're working on, and they can actually move prioritized features up or down depending on what they see as vital for their own businesses. So really hand holding us together. They've got buy-in for what we're developing for them, but we're also supporting them in what we want to do as a business and how we're growing as an actual technology vendor. So that is really, really, really aligned, and we see a lot of success with that engagement. I think we also joke internally, WhatsApp is a big tool for us, and it's so easy for organizations to engage with us because they can just pick up their phone and ask questions. You don't have to go through a customer success portal and then, add a question or put in a form. You can literally WhatsApp our customer success. Our CEO has everybody on his phone, and some of our biggest customers have a direct line into our CEO, who is very proud of the fact that he speaks to 8-10 customers a day, just going through what's top of mind for them, why it's important for us to be partnering on XYZ projects. That's unheard of. I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I don't know anyone else that does that. And then I think the third and final point I'd say is it's really interesting how customers have engaged with us on and their belief in us as a business. So from the very, very early stages of Armis, which was 9 years ago, we said what we wanted to do. We wanted to build a platform that really, really supported their growth and development. And yes, we benefit, our revenue is massively increased over the 9 years we've been in business, but equally so's the support that we've provided to our customers. And so as they have become part of the journey, you can see how engaged they are in our success, as well as our success, as well as their success themselves. So I have had, probably in the last 6 months, more engagement with customers speaking on our behalf and talking about our platform than any company I've ever worked with before. And that, again, is really, really unique. And it shows how trusted we are as a vendor to them and the critical service that we're providing.
That's really interesting. It's an incredibly kind of personal relationship by the sound of it. So I guess that trust is built by familiarity. How do you manage to scale that? I mean, if you've got tens, hundreds, thousands customers, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, we have 850 people just over that work for us, and we have over 1,000 customers. So obviously there is a scale situation. You can't have that personalized service to every single organization. And some people wouldn't want that, right? I mean, that's just way overkill for someone that just wants one specific solution from us. We have a very large platform. We solve multiple solutions from that. But some of the biggest customers, I'd say, if you slice off the top 300 maybe, some of the largest enterprises in the world, transportation, retailers, we look after a lot of airlines, so critical infrastructure who need that emergency line if something were to happen, God forbid, right through to hospitals and obviously government infrastructure. So you can definitely see where there's a sort of different approach to some of those bigger organizations, and those that have been with us for a very, very long time. They do have that sort of length of service, those relationships. I mean, even in my role, which isn't usually very, very customer facing, I have 10 on my WhatsApps I regularly speak to, one in particular that I have known since I started here and I've done lots of marketing activities with. And we're always joking, he's in a retail industry, we're always joking, so I always send him pictures of when I'm shopping in their store when I'm in America. And they love it. They love that personal service because the world is just sort of very opaque at the moment. And actually the people side of business is still as vital as it was sort of 10, 20, 30 years ago. And regardless of COVID, people actually buy from people, and if those relationships and that engagement is genuine and strong and beyond a selling environment, I think that goes a long way in building the trust and the reputation that a company has.
And do you think that kind of personal approach, which is obviously more for your enterprise clients, do you think that then sort of filters into the other businesses and gives them a feeling of that kind of personal, familial approach that builds trust? Or is there something else which builds trust for the kind of, I don't like to use the term long tail, but it's widely understood. So for for everybody else, how do they trust Armis?
I mean, you're right in that it can't just be reliant on one person. So, because if that person were to leave or to change role, you lose those connections. But I think it's showing up in every engagement you have with an organization. So whether it's my role or whether it's in someone that's in customer success, or even one of our events, and they're meeting someone in person that they've never met before. If the culture within the organization is exactly the same, and it is at Armis, every single person is very personable, is very engaged, asks intelligent questions, or all aspects of the departments, whether in product management or right through to sales enablement. Everybody asks really clever questions and is genuinely interested and really committed to customer success. So when you have all of that lined up, any interaction, regardless of where you have it, should be the same experience. So if that personal relationship with one individual then obviously changes, you've got that at a broader basis. And we're seeing that across the place. And as you say, with enterprise customers particularly, I think as the process or the project continues, you have more and more people involved, right? And that then feeds into how they show up in their own organization, because we're a trusted partner. They can ask questions, they can ask us opinions on things, and that's helped over the years go to a deeper level than just a transaction.
So trust is clearly core to everything you do. And it's incredibly hard to measure. But do you think that, do you have any metrics at Armis that help you measure how you're doing in terms of building trust?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is hard to measure because sometimes it's just a feeling. And, Wall Street looks at our revenue and they say, oh, you're growing, and customers, there's no, churn of customers. I mean, we have very, very little churn. It's usually a budget issue that they can't, add on a different service or something like that means a customer pauses something. But most of the time we have very little churn, and we have a very, very high NPS score. I mean, very, very high. It's absolutely unheard of in our industry. And so we're measuring trust consistently through the year, making sure that people feel that they're getting the service that they want, the service levels. We're responding to any queries that they might have or any issues that they have quickly with expediency, and fixing things, remediating things for them quickly. So it is hard to measure, but I think there are some things, NPS scores are one of them, but also, in my world, we do a lot of voice of the customer with Gartner particularly. And that, I mean, we have a 4.9 rating out of 5, again, unheard of. If you have customers speaking on your behalf and saying they have been the best partner we've ever had, this technology or this platform is the best thing that's ever that's transformed our business, I mean, you just let them speak on your behalf. You don't need to do any marketing off the back of that. And year after year after year, we have the highest scores in voice of the customer engagement with Gartner, which has helped solidify even more growth for the company. So there are measures that you can use, but it is continually quite hard to pinpoint where the success comes from.
Yeah. And so much more powerful getting the customer to speak to it than saying it yourself, right?
Yeah, it's funny actually. I was speaking to our president a couple of hours ago, and he was telling me an interesting story. We had a big cybersecurity conference in San Francisco last week, and a customer who will remain nameless, but he's a manufacturer, very, very large manufacturing organization in the US. And he came over to the booth and he said, I need to show these guys who are peers of his in another company your platform. We're like, no, not a problem. Here's a demo. And he went, no, I'm doing it. I want them to see just how impactful it was. And all of the team stood back and said, feel free, go for it. And he just on behalf of us, effectively, the CISO of one of the largest organizations in the US demoed our platform to another organization and said, you need to buy this. It will revolutionize how you're looking at cybersecurity. I mean, you can't write that.
No, I bet you wish you were there with your phone.
I know.
Recording it.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, so, I mean, you and your clients are dealing with crises, I guess, on a daily basis. So they're going to be something you're very familiar with. But are there any issues that have faced you as a company as opposed to your customers that have perhaps tested your customers' trust? Things that have made them think, oh, hang on, I'm not sure I do trust these guys with my infrastructure. And how did you then handle that?
Yeah, look, it's always challenging. Cybersecurity, I mean, it's a 24/7, never stops. There's always something going on. Every sector is affected. It is one of the biggest global problems in tech today. There's nothing that's ever tested their understanding of us, but I think there are always moments in cyber that really stand out of like, wow, this was a major, major test of our industry, and how did people respond? So many of your viewers and listeners might be aware of what happened just before Christmas with CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is a phenomenal company. They have done incredibly well, and they're very, very successful. But every so often, even a company of that scale and size, they have to deal with something, especially in our world, and it had a global impact. Airports were shut, railways were working, critical infrastructure broke down because of one small patch. that was a major issue. It affected hundreds of thousands of customers globally, and it also affected hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who were stuck in various places around the world. At moments like that, you really test a bond, you test a relationship. Now, the beauty of what we do is that we were able to really support some of our customers who are really struggling. And we look after a lot of airlines, as I commented before. And one in particular was really struggling. They were very affected. And our response to that was, was long, and it took weeks for them to recover from. But actually, that really pushed the boundaries of our friendship, our relationship, because we did a really phenomenal job with them. And it had, it was always it's a transactional relationship. We're buying something from you, but that actually, in a very positive way, changed the relationship, because we were able to step in where many others had failed. And yeah, the project took a long time for them to resolve. It was, really a catastrophic event for them. But actually, I think it solidified how important we were to them, and to the future of the relationship. It has obviously grown exponentially since then. So there are moments where you think it can change for the better. But yeah, it's never a moment you want to happen, but hopefully you rise to the occasion when it does.
And do you think, because that was one issue perhaps which you got particularly involved in, was there anything that you did differently that perhaps impacted how you worked with other organizations, and lessons learned from that one particular challenge? Appreciate it wasn't your challenge, it was theirs, and it was how you worked together. But did it make you think, actually, we did that differently to how we tend to deal with those sorts of crises, because it was that much bigger?
Yeah, I think, if I could be candid, might get into trouble for saying this, but it changed a lot of our internal processes, because the nature of time zones, the global nature of any organization, something happens on one side of the world, and unfortunately, there's someone asleep somewhere, and you can't replicate some roles 5 or 6 times just because of follow the sun approach. And actually, that broke very early in the morning. If you remember, it was literally 8 o'clock in the morning in the UK. So a lot of our colleagues in customer success, who not everyone is based in the US, but some of them are. I mean, it's 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Now, in hindsight, we should have woken them up and apologized afterwards, but we left it for a few hours, not on the customer success side so much, but the communication side of things. And with hindsight, I think we would just wake everyone up and say, I'm sorry, we'll give you a week off, another date, but this is so important. We need to get this communication out sooner than we actually planned, which was like an hour later than we should really have done. And so I think there's a lot of internal things you learn on how the business runs, and like where the continuity elements might be that you can improve, and ultimately we have done that for the future if it should arise again. But yeah, things like that make you test some of your systems quite well, I think.
Yeah, nothing like a crisis to test you.
Yeah.
So how long has Armis been going for? Is it
9 years?
9 years.
It'll be 10 years next year. Yeah.
So over those, wow, so we're older than you. Wow. So how do you think the trust in Armis has evolved over those 9 years? And are there any significant drivers that you think really helped it to develop? Because I guess when you were starting out, 9 years ago, how did you go and win those massive brands?
Yeah, it was very one-on-one. I mean, it was before my time. I've been only at the company for the last 3 years, but I have heard anecdotes. Our co-founders, Nadir Israel and Yevgeny Dubrov, literally traveled. I think they won an award. I might be speaking out of turn, but they won some sort of award from one of the airlines for the amount of miles flown that year. And they literally were personalized service. It was them engaging with relationships, building the brand from the ground up over the first couple of years at least. And as the company evolved, obviously we're 850 plus people now, but as the company evolved, obviously they're still engaged with a lot of those initial customers, and they still do a serious amount of travel. But it has evolved over time. You can expand out, you can grow your portfolio a little bit better. When Armis first started, we were known for IoT security protection, so a very niche area that was up and coming, was very new. literally cameras on the side of buildings, sort of security that can't be patched. So it was a real risky area. Now we are a massive platform organization. We look at everything to do with security. We're an early warning system, so we give advice to clients before they're even attacked. I mean, it's totally changed the game. And so as you evolve the engagement you have with clients, I think we've had to evolve us as an organization and how we sell. And obviously we've got a hell of a lot bigger. So those co-founders of ours don't need to have to keep traveling so far as they used to.
But it was still, by the sounds of it, right back from day dot, it was just about that personal approach. And
Oh, it was, yeah. It's core. As I said before, it's absolutely core. I mean, people don't really understand until you obviously work in a company that has that at the core of who they are. But it's embedded into the culture, the personalised service. We're a completely remote working organisation, apart from a headquarters in the US and an office in Israel. So to get a culture to work like that, you have to spend a lot of time in person together. There's a huge amount of investment in in-person meetings. I have never traveled so much in a job as I do in this one, and that's really to make sure that you are really engaging with the people and putting time and effort into understanding them, so when the inevitable Zooms do come, you can engage with them on a different level than you would have done if you were just building it over Zoom. So that personal engagement is ingrained into how we behave and how we operate.
Great. So thinking outside of your sector, or maybe there's some in the cybersecurity sector as well, but are there any companies that you look to for inspiration when building trust?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think if you look totally out of cyber, if I look personally at some of the people I really admire and respect, especially there's a lot of Netflix documentaries about how, Nike was built and what's going on with some of the sort of sports teams at the moment. And you see this insight into respect and admiration that people have. And I think one of the things that people, that crossover between your consumer personal world and obviously your business world, it's interesting to see if the same dynamic and the same things that you like about organizations is the same. And for me, obviously cyber is very unique. I don't physically as a person buy cybersecurity solutions from my own personal family, but I do respect how people have built brands and grown. And I think we talk, and it sort of is still in tech, but we talk a lot about Wiz, a cloud security company that's grown so quickly over the last 3 years. They're well known to Armis, but they are really out there in terms of how they have developed their brand, how they've grown their customer base. They've just been bought by Google for the biggest amount of money ever in existence of an acquisition. So there's definitely things that we aspire to grow to, and also we like. I think from a consumer perspective, I look at that real historic pull. I know they're having difficulty from a cyber perspective at the moment, but I'm still a Brit through and through and love M&S. I respect them wholeheartedly of how they have grown over the sort of more modern day era, how they're constantly evolving their brand, how they've had to pivot so many times over the years, and they're at the real top of their game at the moment. I know they're really struggling with a cyber outage, but before that, and let's park that aside because it's just a moment in time, they've overhauled their food service, they've overhauled their retail service, their customer success is second to none. I know that's a bit ironic given the current circumstances, but we have to give them a bit of a breathing space while they fix this. But I think they've done an amazing job, and I think they're one of those big consumer brands. I think are very impressive. So there's lots to admire in some of the British institutions, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, M&S and John Lewis and these organisations that have been around for a long time. I think
Exactly.
longevity builds trust to a certain extent.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And also, again, I come full circle to what I said at the beginning. Do what you say you're going to do. I think, I can't remember exactly the words of the John Lewis promise, but that whole partnership approach they've got with their staff that goes through to Waitrose as well. I know it's a UK institution, but you really commit to something if you're bought into it. And John Lewis has gone through its own evolution. Waitrose has gone through its own evolution. But there is that sort of hereditary tradition of those iconic brands, and you sort of want to buy into their success as a British person, just as much as you know, using their, if you use any of their goods or their products.
Yeah, well, it comes back to what you've said many times about how Armis work on that sort of
Mm,
personal touch, because you go into Waitrose or John Lewis, and it does really feel like the people there
yep,
kind of are
they
personally
care.
invested,
Yeah,
and indeed they are, obviously to differing levels, but they really do care
they
about the
do care.
customer, and that's important.
Yeah, I think they do, and I mean, look, we're humans at the end of the day. People buy from other humans. They like feeling good. They like interacting. Well, most people like interacting with each other. I think that's part and parcel of the post-COVID world we live in. It's not some, you know, distant sort of thing that you're purchasing. You're engaging with humans, hopefully, and you really buy into a journey. And that's what, you know, good trust is built from, I think.
So one of the questions that I've been asking a lot of the people that have been kind of appearing on this series is, are you exploring any new technologies to enhance consumer trust? And I
Mm,
don't think I'm going to ask you that one, because that is all you do, right? So
yeah,
I would
AI.
hope, and you probably can't tell me what those new technologies are because they're trade secrets. But so instead of that, I'm going to flip it and
Okay.
say, do you think there's any technologies that are kind of emerging now that really threaten consumer trust? And how do you think we can maybe deal with those?
Mm. Well, it's funny. You said you weren't going to ask me the same question. My answer's the same, whether you ask me the question or not. I'm going to say AI. So AI is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we use it to, you know, prevent attacks from the bad guys. But actually, I think it is one of the number one risks to trust currently in the world today, because it's not just about word manipulation or image manipulation. It's fundamental to how society works. We do a lot of work understanding, you know, the risk to societal changes around the world. So last year being a massive election year, not just in the US but across Europe, many countries went to the polls. They voted for change of their governments. AI threatens the fundamental premise of truth and knowledge and how you assess information. And so if you lose that through manipulated use of technology like I mean, where do we go from there? There's no guardrails on AI, and that's one of the biggest things we worry about as a
Mm.
business. It is very important we leverage AI, but at the same time, it is one of the biggest risks to democracy there is today. And so, trust with AI, as prevalent as it is now, is going to be one of the biggest things we ask ourselves as a society, I think, for the next couple of years. And that sounds really alarmist, but coming from a cybersecurity professional, trust me, it is so close to the truth. It's a very real concern.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it fundamentally changes so many
It does.
things. It's really interesting to me to see how different, I guess, sectors are embracing
Mm.
or not. And I was particularly interested to hear a university talk about this the other day. I think it was Sheffield. It was in the news. Sheffield Uni was talking about how they get their students as sort of almost like a red, amber, green. So certain papers, no AI; certain papers, a bit of AI; certain
Hmm.
papers, it's almost compulsory to use AI. And I think
Yep.
that just is just one of the many kind of signals as to how things will change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, I think just thinking on from that, and again, I guess the answers may be similar, but do you see any trends that will help shape consumer trust? So we know that AI is going to be a
Hmm.
challenge and a benefit.
Hmm.
Um, what are the trends that you see that will help us shape consumer trust? And I think when I say consumer trust, I mean the sort of people the buyers, right?
Hmm.
Over the next 5 years in the face of that AI. So
Yeah.
what could we be looking at?
It's interesting. I genuinely don't think anyone knows. I think these things are changing so quickly now. You know, whereas before you could predict the sort of 3 to 5 year trends of consumer confidence, consumer growth. These are the areas of sector dominance, whatever you just can't predict it now. It's happening on a month by month basis. I think at the heart of what's going on, and ironically, we're in the midst of just a very recent UK-US trade negotiation. It's really going to be the sort of global nature of how we all settle in the next couple of months with each other, because, on the one hand, we've got some serious physical wars going on in Europe, but we also have some very, very heated geopolitical issues. And the trade wars and the tariffs and things like that are causing chaos everywhere. So I think it's hard to predict. I think technology is going to be at the heart, unfortunately, going to be the heart of quite a lot of it. And I think consumer confidence seems to be going down. There's a lot of nervousness about the fluctuating markets, the fluctuating sort of lifestyles people have. So it's not going to be pretty. I hope for the best at the end of it all, but I think, it's going to be a very turbulent time over the next couple of months.
Undoubtedly. And finally, if there was one piece of advice that you think you could give to other companies, be they consumer, B2B, to help them build trust, what might that be?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is to try and put yourself out of your own sort of focus. So we always talk about stop navel gazing and actually focus on the problem at hand. A lot of organizations literally want to talk about themselves and they want to say, this is what we do and this is how we can help. But actually, we're here to solve a problem. Any organization, whether you're selling food or you're doing cybersecurity tech or you're selling trainers, everyone wants to solve a problem and they want to fix something for their customer. Focus on what that problem is. And actually, if you can sort of reverse engineer back, you will get a lot further than trying to keep selling the sort of vision of what you do and how you do it better than anyone else. Because that's when you really gain consumer and business confidence, by putting yourselves in their shoes and trying to fix their problem, not necessarily the problem you are thinking that they have. And ask the right questions. So we spend an awful lot of time just listening. I mean, I'm talking a lot of the podcast, but we spend most of our time listening to what the problems are and trying to then think about how to fix it. And if you can do that, I think that's going to be half the battle going forward.
Brilliant advice. Well, one of the things which I've heard a lot in sort of sales training is 2 ears, 1 mouth. So yeah, listen to your customers, listen
Absolutely.
to the market,
Yeah.
and you'll hopefully benefit and build that trust.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's been
Pleasure.
really fun talking to you, and
You too.
I didn't know very much about Armis, and now I know a lot more, which
Great.
is great. So thank
That's
you.
great.